Hey everyone, my name is Abhishek and today we are going to create this 3D rust look animation in After Effects. You can use any logo, text or whatever you want, all this without using any third-party plugin. So let's begin. Alright, so right now I'm in After Effects and here you can see that I've already imported this texture footage. So I will put a link in the description from where you can download this, and after that you can import it in After Effects. But it is completely up to you, you can use whatever texture you want. So after that we are going to create a new composition. So let's go to composition, new comp, and let's call this one main. Width and height will be 1920 by 1080, frame rate 30 fps, and duration you can pick whatever you want. Just click on OK. Let's create another composition for our text or logo. So I'm going to call this one media, and rest of the things will remain same. Just click on OK. So let's open up the media comp, and in this one I'm going to add my text, but it's completely up to you. You can drag whatever logo you want. So let's select the text tool and I'm going to just click, and I'm going to type my text rusty, and you can type whatever you want. And for this example I'm using this Go Bold regular font, but it's completely up to you. You can pick whatever you want. Just select your text and I'm going to quickly align it to the center. So let's place it over here. If you're not able to see the align panel, then you can go to Windows and from here you can enable it. Now let's make sure that its anchor point is in the center. So I'm going to select this and hold on the control key, and you can double click on this to make this to the center. Something like this. So here you can see we have our text, and right now you can see that it has the fill, but we want to add stroke to this and we want to separate it from the text. So let's see how to do that. For that, let's create another composition, and I'm going to call this text stroke, or let's call this media stroke, and rest of the things will remain same. Just click on OK. And in this one I'm going to drag my media comp. So here you can see we have our text, and let's add some outline to this by right clicking. Let's go to layer style, and from here let's enable stroke, and I'm going to go under the stroke, and from here I'm going to set the size to something like 10. And right away you can see we are able to see some outlines, and you can pick color from here. I'm going to set this to white as well. And also on this one I'm going to apply a fill effect so that our fill color is different. So let's drag it over here, and I'm going to change the color to black. So now you can see we have the outline, but you will notice that we have not got rid of the fill. We still have it. So now to remove this, we are going to do a couple of things. So first I'm going to create a new solid and make sure that its color is black, and just click on OK, and let's place it below, something like this. Now once you're done with this, select both the layers and right click on pre-compose, and I'm going to call this media outline, and make sure that this option is checked, and just click on OK. Here we have the fill and stroke as well. So in order to get rid of it, I'm going to search for shift channels, and let's drag it over here. And from here we are going to change the take alpha from alpha to luminance. And now if I turn this off, you can see we have only the stroke, not fill, which is exactly what we want. So once you're done with this, let's go back to the main comp, and I'm going to create another composition for my texture. And this one I'm going to select a preset which is 2K in size, and let's set the frame rate to 30, but it's completely up to you. You can set whatever width and height you want depending upon your texture. So just click on OK. Let me just quickly drag my texture over here, and you can see that it's quite large. So I'm going to press S to scale this down, something like this. And I forgot to rename this, so I'm going to select this. So let's quickly call this texture. Now we can close this up, and let's close this up as well. Now let's open up the main comp, and we are going to drag our text. So let's drag the media over here, and we are going to drag our texture as well. Now you can scale this in and just place it wherever you want, something like this. After that we are going to make the background a little bit darker. So for that, search for curves, and let's drag it over here. So you can pick a couple of points and just make the curve to look something like this, just like that. So once you're happy with this, we are ready to apply another effect called exposure, and let's drag it over here. And from here you can make this down to something like 1.2 or something around here, but it is completely up to you. You can play around with this value and you can make it much darker, but for this one let's stick with this. Now, once you are done with this, we are ready to create the rust effect. So before we proceed, a lot of you watching right now have not subscribed to my channel, and I want you to please do that because I want to hit 100k subscribers this year on my channel. So make sure to subscribe and press the bell icon. So let's continue. So for that, I'm going to create another composition. Let's call this rust texture, and I'm going to set this to 1920 by 1080. Rest of the things will remain same. Just click on OK. And under this one, we are going to create a new solid. So right click solid, and you can pick whatever color you want. After that, search for fractal noise, and let's drag it over here. So in this one, we are going to change a couple of settings. So first, I'm going to set the contrast to something like 500, and rest of the things will remain same. We will play around with the brightness later on, and in order to give this a rusty kind of color, so we are going to apply tritone. So just search for tritone and let's drag it over here. Now we are going to change a couple of colors. So let's pick this one, and I'm going to make this gray, something like this. And let's pick this one, midtones. I'm going to set it over here, and let's pick the shadows, and let's quickly pick this color, and I'm going to make this little bit red. And after that, you can just play around with the texture just like this. So here you can see we have added the rust looking texture, but we want to add more details to this. So in order to do that, let's drag our texture comp over here, and let's place it on top of this. And after that, I'm going to first change the mode. So let's go under the modes, and I'm going to change this to overlay. And if you're not able to see the modes option, then you can click over here. Now you can see that we have added the texture on top of our rust, and I'm going to tweak this more by simply searching for curves. Let's drag it over here, and I'm going to make this darker. So let's pick a couple of points, and let's make this dark, something like this. So I think this is looking fine. And once you're happy with this, let's go back to the main comp, and let's quickly drag our rust texture, and let's place it below. Now I'm going to change its track matte option. So I'm going to just simply pick quick, or you can just click over here, and from here you can pick the media comp. Now I'm using the latest version of After Effects, so that's why my track matte option is looking like this. But if you're using the older version, that you won't have these pick whips and this option. So instead you will have a single drop down, something like this, and it will have 4 options: track matte inverted, luma matte, and luma matte inverted. And from that you have to select the track matte option. Just make sure that the rust texture is below the media comp, and after that I'm going to just pick whip. So here you can see that now our rust texture is visible from the text, which is exactly what we want. Now let's drag our outline. So let's drag it over here, and I think it's the stroke one. So let's drag the media stroke. So yeah, here you can see we only have the stroke. So let me just quickly add some texture to this. So in order to do that, let's drag our texture over here. And again, we are going to select the track matte option, and I'm going to just pick the media stroke. So now you can see that our texture is visible from here, and we are going to play around with a couple of these settings. So first I'm going to search for curves or tint, and let's drag it over here on the texture, and I'm going to change the map white color to a little bit darker, just like this. And if you want, you can also search for curves, and let's drag it over here, and I'm going to add more detailing, something like this. So here you can see we have the outline, but I want to have a little bit of highlight edges. And in order to do that, I'm going to select the texture, and you can right click, and from here let's go under the layer style, and let's enable bevel and emboss. And right away you can see we are able to see some highlights, and let's tweak this further. So let's go under the bevel and emboss options, and from here there are a bunch of settings that you can play around. So first I'm going to lower down the size. So let's set this to something like 2 maybe. So yeah, I think this is looking fine. And you can play around with the angle of light, and you can just place it wherever you want. But for this example, I want the light to come from the top. So in order to do that, I'm going to just place it over here, which is exactly where we have it right now. And you can play around with the altitude. So just leave it to 30, and rest of the things will remain same. So we are pretty much done with our look, and let's just close this up. So now we have the outline and fill, and let's add some inner shadow to this. So now to do that, let's drag the media stroke again and let's place it somewhere around here. And I'm going to select this, right click, go to layer style, and from here we are going to select the drop shadow option, just like that. Now you can open this up and you can play around with a couple of these settings, but I'm going to leave this as it is. And instead we are going to apply a drop shadow on top of this. So let's search for drop shadow and let's drag it over here. And from here we are going to change a couple of the settings. So the first thing is that I'm going to change the angle. So I want this come from the top. So I'm going to set this to 180 degree. After that we are going to select shadows only so that we don't have any sort of fill. And then I'm going to just increase the softness little bit. Now you can play around with the opacity to make this darker, something like this. But this is completely up to you. You can pick whatever you want. And let's set the softness to something like this. Just play around with the opacity. So I think this is looking fine. So here you can see we have our 3D sort of looking outline. And we are pretty much done with this. Now let's add some 3D depth to this. So in order to do that, we are going to do a couple of things. So first, let me just quickly select this and let's call this inner shadow. Make sure to rename your layers, otherwise this will become very confusing. Now let's add some 3D depth to this. So in order to do that, let's drag our media stroke over here and let's place this below everything, something like this. And after that, I'm going to search for fill. Let's drag it over here and I'm going to change its color to black, but it's completely up to you. You can pick whatever you want. And after that, let's search for CC radial blur and let's drag it over here. And from here, we are going to change the type from scratch to fading zoom. And after that, you can play around with the amount. So if I set this to something like negative, you can see that we are getting some blur over here. And I'm going to set this to something like -30. And rest of the things we can tweak later on. And in order to make this into 3D, we are going to search for curves. Let's drag it over here. And from here, I'm going to change the channel from RGB to alpha. And let's click in the middle and just drag this point to the very top, something like this. And here you can see we are able to see some 3D depth, just like this. Let me just quickly solo this out and let's turn on transparency. So here you can see we have the 3D depth, and I think this is looking fine. But if you want to control the depth, then you can just decrease the amount to something like this, and you can see that it will increase the depth. But for this one, I'm going to set this to -30. Now instead of black, we want some texture over here. Again, we are going to drag our texture comp. So let's select this and I'm going to place this below our media stroke, which is the 3D depth. And let me just quickly select this and let's rename this to 3D depth. Now I'm going to select the texture and again, we are going to do the same thing. Let's select this and I'm going to just set this to 3D texture. Just like that. And there are a couple of things that you can do. So we don't want the same kind of texture everywhere. So we can just add a little bit of variation by simply rotating this. So let's press R and rotate it something like. So I think this is looking fine. Now we can tweak this further. So first let's apply curves and let's make this darker. Just like this. And let's search for tint. Let's drag it onto this and let's change the white color to a little bit darker, something like that. And let's play around with the curves and you can see we are able to see some texture over here, but it's completely up to you. You can play around with this. So I think this is looking fine. Now I don't like this outline over here, so we can fix that by simply selecting the texture, so which we have over here, and we can just move it below, just like this. So now you can see we have our text and we have our 3D depth, but you will notice that this is looking way too flat. So in order to add a little bit of shadows over here as well, we are going to select the texture. So let's select this and just right click layer styles, and I'm going to enable bevel and emboss for this as well. So now you can see we are able to see some highlights, but we don't want this to be this bright. So let's tweak it by opening up the bevel and emboss, and from here first I'm going to change the highlight color to black, and after that I'm going to change the mode from screen to multiply. So now you can see we have this really dark sort of edge, and let's enable the colors, and I'm going to set both of them to 100. And now you can play around with the size, and let's increase this. Now you can see that we are able to see some highlights over here and something over this side, and you can play around with this just like this. So now you can see we are able to see some edges. So this is before and after. You can see that it has added much depth to this, and you can play around with the angle to move it something like this. And now you can see we are able to see some shadows into this, which is exactly what we want. So we are pretty much done with our text. Let's add some shadows to this. So in order to do that, I'm going to just quickly select the 3D depth, and let's press Ctrl D to duplicate it. Now I'm going to select this one, which does not have this icon. So let's place it over here, and let's enable this up. And after that, we are going to just close this up. And on top of this, we are going to add CC radial blur once again. So just search for CC radial blur, and let's drag it over here. And again, we are going to set this to fading zoom, and let's increase the amount. So now you can see we are able to see some shadows, and let's change the center point. So just click over here, and let's place it over here so that the shadow is moving down, and you can play around with its position. Now we are going to create a bunch of different copies. So first we have this, and let's drag this somewhere around here so that we have very tight shadows. And to add more shadow, you can select this. Let me just quickly rename this to shadow. Let's select this, and I'm going to press Ctrl D to duplicate it once again. And on this one, we are going to just increase the amount, something like this. And let's move this a little bit down, just like that. Now again, it's completely up to you. You can pick whatever amount you want. If you want to have more copies, then you can just select the shadow and just duplicate it once again. And you can see that it will increase the shadow amount, lower down the value, something like this. So now I think we are pretty much done with this. And there are a couple of things that you will notice. First, you can see that we don't have any kind of shadows over here. So this is not looking perfect. So in order to fix that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the shadow once again, and let's press Ctrl D. And on this one, we are going to just change the angle. So let's select this, and I'm going to change the angle to somewhere around here. Now you can see that we are able to see some shadows. And after that, we are going to select this and just decrease the amount so that this is only around this region. And let's place it over here. And after that, let's press T to lower down its opacity, just like that. So here you can see we have added more shadows, just like this. So now we are done with our scene, and our last step is to add some cinematic lights to this. So in order to do that, let's create an adjustment layer. So right click, new adjustment layer, and on top of this, we are going to apply exposure. And let's drag this over here. And I'm going to select the exposure, and let's drag this somewhere around here. So now you can see that it will turn everything dark. So we can fix that by selecting this, and I'm going to select the shape tool, and let's select the ellipse tool, and make sure that this layer is selected, and just double click on this. So it will create a mask, something like this, but we want this to be inverted. So we can just simply click over here. So now you can see that the outside is darker and this one is brighter. And let's add some feathering. So select this, press F, and let's feather this out, something like this. After that, you can just simply double click on the mask, and you can see that now we can scale this however we want. And let's hold down the Control key, and let's just make this smaller, something like this. And after that, you can select any edge, and you can just play around with it and just make it smaller however you want. So here you can see we have added some lighting. So now you can see that we are highlighting this region. And in order to add more highlight, let's create another adjustment layer. So right click, new adjustment layer. And on this one, let's drag the exposure. And instead of decreasing this, I'm going to just increase this up, something like this. And let's select the shape tool and make sure that this layer is selected. And I'm going to just quickly draw a ellipse, something like this. And again, let's select this, press F to feather this out, something like this. Now you can select this, just double click on this. And after that, you can just place it somewhere around here at the top, just like this. So here you can see we have created this. And if you want, you can just play around with the intensity, just like that. So here you can see we have created this cinematic lighting, and you can see that this is before and this is after. So you can see that it makes a huge impact. Now the last step is to add some animation to this. So for that, we are going to create another adjustment layer. So right click, new adjustment layer. And on this one, we are going to search for levels. And let's drag the levels effect onto this. And let's select this, add a keyframe to the histogram, because this is the final look that we want. So I'm going to press U to see the keyframe, and let's place it somewhere around here. And in the beginning, we are going to change a couple of the settings. So first I'm going to just change this, and let's place it over here. So now you can see that it will make this darker. And to completely get rid of this white area, we can just pick this point and let's drag it all the way to the black, something like this. So now if I play back, here you can see we have this very subtle reveal. Let's move the keyframes closer. So if I play back, here you can see we have this subtle reveal. Now let's add some animation to the rust as well. We can add this growing animation into this. So for that, let's open up the rust texture and let's select the black solid, and we are going to animate the brightness. So let's add a keyframe and let's set this to something like this. After that, let's select, press U, and let's see the keyframe and let's move it over here. So let's go to the very beginning, and in the beginning, I'm going to just change its value so that it will completely disappear, something like this. Now if I play back, here you can see that the rust will start growing slowly. Let's move the keyframe closer, somewhere around here. And now if I play back, here you can see that the rust will start growing slowly, and after that it will stop. So we can select the keyframes and let's press F9 to ease them, and let's go into the graph, and I'm going to just change this to something like this. Now we don't want this to stop completely, so I'm going to go somewhere around here, and I'm going to just drag this little bit further, somewhere around here. After that, you can select these middle keyframes, and you can just simply right click, go to keyframe velocity, and let's enable the continuous. Just click on OK. Now you can go over here and let's zoom in. Now you can just select both the keyframes and just move them a little bit up, something like this, and just play around with the keyframe. Now you can see that we have this gradually increasing rust, something like this. So if I go back to the main comp and if I play back, here you can see we have this rust growing animation, which is exactly what we want. So if you want, you can just play around with its timing, and you can just move this somewhere around here. Now I don't want this to be static. I want a little bit of panning or zooming in. So in order to do that, let's again create a new adjustment layer. And I swear this is going to be the last adjustment layer. And on this one, let's search for transform. Let's drag it over here, and we are going to animate the scale. So let's go to somewhere around here. Let's set the 10-second mark, and let's add a keyframe for the scale, and let's go to the very beginning, or let's zoom in over here, and I'm going to just set this to something like 90. Now I'm going to select this, press U, and let's move this over here. Now you can see that in the beginning we are able to see some black edges, and in order to fix this we can select the adjustment layer. So make sure to not select this one. So we are going to just select these two, and let's press S, and I'm going to scale this up so that it fits the scene, something like this. Also let's select the texture comp, which is the very bottom. Let's press S, and I'm going to just scale this, something like that. So now if I play back, here you can see we have this very amazing rust animation, and you can see that our rust is growing. And this is the final look, but if you want you can play around with a couple of more lighting effects. But the best thing about this technique is that this is all procedural. So if you want to change the text, all you have to do is just simply go on inside the media comp, and from here you can type whatever you want. Now if I go back here, you can see that it will update the text, and you can see that all the effects are already applied, something like this. Now if you want you can also use logos. So here you can see I have this Nike logo, and let me just quickly drag it over here, and let's apply fill to see what we have over here. Let's search for fill and let's make this white. Let's scale this down to something like this. Now let's disable our text, and we have our logo. If I go back here, you can see we have the logo over here as well. So now if I play back here, you can see that all the animations are already applied, and this is how you can use whatever text or logo you want. So this is how you can create these kind of rusty text animations or logo animation, whatever you want. All this only using After Effects. And the project files for this tutorial is available on Patreon. So if you are supporting me over there, then you can download it from there. And if you are not, then you might consider it, because you will get access to the tutorial project files and exclusive templates that are available only on Patreon. And before I leave, if you haven't subscribed, then make sure to do that, because it takes a lot of effort to make these kind of tutorials for you, and that would really help me out. So with that being said, my name is Abhishek, and I'll see you in the next one.